Good morning, and welcome to the 183rd Annual Commencement Ceremony at Denison University. Everybody get a lot of sleep last night? I just want to start by congratulating the class of 2024. Can I ask the class to just stand up and face the audience with me for a second? So, can I ask the members of the class, can you please join me in thanking all the parents, grandparents, family members, mentors, and others who supported your Denison education? Can we give them a round of applause? And can everybody other than our faculty stand, and can we thank our faculty for the work they do to educate our students? So I say this every year, but this is a faculty of world-class scholars, educators, advisors, and mentors who, from my perspective, define what it means to be all in. But there was not a faculty in the country that was there for its first-year class more than this faculty was in the fall of 2020. Can we give them one more round of applause? And can we also express our respect for our staff? Relationships define Denison, and every staff member here embraces and enhances this great quality. The care, the commitment that our staff show to our students, from my perspective, is a defining attribute of this great college. Can we thank our staff? And finally, to our students. Our students are smart, they're interesting, they're curious, and they're engaged. They're also empathetic, they're nice, they're open-minded, and they're ethical. Our students work hard in the classrooms and labs and perform at an exceptionally high level in athletic fields, artistic studios, stages, and everywhere in between. Our students are involved, and they learn from each other. I have a huge admiration for our students. Can we give them one more round of applause? I do want to just start by acknowledging that this class of seniors will always be really special to me. You arrived on this campus during the middle of a global pandemic. Your first year was many, many, many things, but normal was not one of them. And yet we endured. We were on campus figuring it out and finding a path forward together. We leaned into our liberal arts attributes, and we stayed open. Many of you form tight friendships that will anchor the rest of your lives. You went through something hard together, and you came out the other end with more emotional agility, intelligence, and grit. There's not a group of human beings I would have rather have gone through that with than you, and I'll always have a lot of respect, admiration, and gratitude for the way you leaned in during that first year. Thank you for being great Denisonians. And as we do every year in commencement, I do also want to just remember one of your classmates who started but passed away during your time at Denison, Mintalk. Can we just have a moment of silence? Thank you. So every August, I write a letter to incoming students with advice on how to get the most from your Denison experience. A few weeks ago, a graduating senior asked if I would bookend it with advice on how to successfully navigate the post-graduation transition. I thought that was kind of an interesting question. And so this morning, I want to offer 5 pieces of advice. Let me start with 2 pieces of advice that are a little abstract, but I think important. Here's my first piece of advice. Use your liberal arts education to guide your everyday life. You worked hard over the last 4 years to get a Denison education. Now use it. Walk through life as critical thinkers and creative problem solvers who can effectively communicate and work with others. Be the people who have the intellectual humility needed to navigate complexity. If you do this, you will be a better friend, partner, parent, coworker, community member, and anything else you set out to do. There's 4 skills of the liberal arts that you've hopefully learned at Denison. The first is critical thinking. Be the people who have the ability to understand problems and issues in their complexity. During your time at Denison, you've learned how to use reason, rationality, and data to better understand the world around you through knowledge and truth. Creative problem solving. Be the people who have the capacity to innovate. It's one thing to be able to critique. It's another to build on that critique by being able to imagine paths forward, to see beyond old solutions to build the future. Effective communication. You know how to speak and write in ways that others can hear so we can effectively work together on the things we all care about. Anyone can shout, but liberal arts students are taught how to weave words together in ways so that other people can understand our points of view. We also know how to listen to and hear from the views of others so we can engage and learn from each other. And finally, intellectual humility. You've developed the capacity to walk through life as a lifelong learner. Liberal arts graduates understand that they might be wrong, and hence they're the people who are always seeking out alternative views, facts, and experiences. We should always be challenging orthodoxy, starting with our own. Beneath this set of skills are a set of what I will call liberal arts values: a commitment to hard work, to ethics, to empathy, to curiosity, to perseverance, to humor, and to an appreciation that we are all part of things larger than ourselves. This is also a crucial part of the liberal arts. These are the skills and values we've given to you. So my persuasive advice is use them to be the architect of the life that you want to live. Second, develop habits that align with your goals. Denison alumnus and best-selling author James Clear writes, "What we repeatedly do each and every day ultimately forms the results we enjoy and the goals we achieve. Change your habits and you'll transform your life, your team, and your organization." Whatever goals you want to hit in your life will only be achieved when your habits align with them. James writes, "Habits are the small decisions you make and the actions you perform every day. Habits account for about 40% of our behaviors on any given day. Your life today is essentially the sum of your habits. What you repeatedly do, what you spend your time thinking about and doing each day, ultimately forms the person you are, the things you believe in, and the personality that you portray." James often writes that we do not rise to the level of our goals, but rather we tend to fall to the level of our habits. Your ability to be happy, successful, healthy, and productive is shaped by the habits you have or don't have. Your habits need to be aligned with your goals for you to live the kind of life you want to lead. I suspect that all of us, I know I can name 3 good habits we have and 3 bad habits we would like to change. We actually have agency. We have the agency to preserve the habits we like and to change those that are not helpful. So here's a piece of advice. Read Atomic Habits as your first post-college book. So now let me offer 3 pieces of advice that are a little more practical and equally as important. Third, develop healthy relationships. If you get the relationships in your life right, everything else will fall into place. Here's a truism. Your life will turn out to be remarkably similar to the people you choose to hang around. Develop relationships with people who bring out the best in you. Shed toxic people. Surround yourself with people who are curious, who are grateful, and who are positive. You've just spent 4 years on a campus that's defined by relationships. Hopefully, one of the things you learned at Denison is what a healthy relationship does and does not look like. One of our graduating seniors recently wrote to me, "The people at Denison make it a special place. The professor my first year remembered me because of my hometown and invited me a year later to do summer research. the staff who made a deep investment and have a profound impact on students. My Denison friends have made me more well-rounded thinker, ready to hold space for difficult conversations. Call it Midwestern charm, but Denison students are some of the most welcoming, inclusive people who make you feel right at home. Many of you are leaving Denison with incredible friendships. Nurture these friendships so they can shape the rest of your life. An alumnus recently wrote to me, "To this day, I remain extremely close with approximately 15 of my Denison friends. And over the last 30 years, we've extended that to wives and children. 40 years post-graduation, we gather 3 to 5 times a year. Not a single day goes by without our text chat. We've lived life with joys, challenges, and really hard times, and we've done it together. Always supportive, I've known at every moment in my life I was not alone, and my Denison friends were there with and for me. You can't choose your family, but you get to choose your friends. At Denison, we chose each other, and with each passing day, the bonds have strengthened. I cannot conceive of life without them." Here's the fourth. Be present in every moment and be performance-oriented. If I could give you one parting gift, it would be this one. Don't be distracted by the past or worried about the future. If you stay focused on the past, you will live a life of either regret or nostalgia. If you stay focused on the future, you will live a life focused on things that never happened. Stay focused on the present moment. Devote all your time and attention to what is right in front of you, and focus all your time and attention on enjoying that moment, learning from that moment, performing at the highest level in that moment towards whatever you're trying to achieve. Doing this requires being centered and staying centered. So find what centers you, your own form of mindfulness. As some of you know, I have a serious meditation practice that allows me to stay focused on what is right in front of me, even when my job and other aspects of my life can pull me in other directions. Find your own form of mindfulness. Hike, cook, journal, read. There's no right way, but notice we're back to habits. Find your way and make it a habit that matters. As part of this, avoid 2 mental mistakes that too many people make. The first is to be fixated on failure. We all experience failure. Learn from it, use it to grow as a person, and then move on. But don't ever stay fixated on it. The second is our fear of embarrassment, which too often keeps people from trying things they most want to try. Here's another simple truth. Life gets much, much, much easier once you get over your fear of embarrassment. So show up, stay focused on the present moment, work hard, and perform well. If you do this, you will be surprised at how far you will get towards your goals and aspirations. And here's the final, my 5th piece of advice. Careers only look linear backwards. Just find a place to start and take it one step at a time. I'm often asked by students, what's the best first job? The answer is really simple. The best first job is the one you can get. Your first job is merely your first job. Find some place to start, take it from there. My first 3 jobs, they were an absolute disaster. That would be putting it kindly. But I learned from them. And my fourth job got me on a path that I didn't ever anticipate when I graduated from college, and it shaped my life. In this economy, your second job will absolutely be more important than your first job. The first pivot matters, and remember, the Knowlton Center will be here for you as you make it. At a recent alumni event, an alumnus said to me that they always advise recent college grads to ask themselves 3 questions about any job. Do I like the people I work for and with? Am I gaining skills and experiences that open up new opportunities and make me worth more on the open market than I was a year ago? And am I paid a reasonable amount for the work that I'm doing? That's good advice, and I would add, does this job allow me to architect that I want for myself today and maybe into the future. Everything is a step towards something. Your career will unfold in unexpected and good ways. My one fun piece of advice, make it a habit to ask people at work to share their career journeys with you. People like to talk about themselves. They'll be happy to share, and you'll learn a lot from them. So that's my advice. You get to be the architect of the life you want to live. Do so by using the Denison education you work hard to receive. Develop good habits and nurture healthy relationships, starting with those you made at Denison. Be present in every moment and performance-oriented. Just find a job, and don't worry if it's not the perfect job. It won't be. And finally, just stay curious, grateful, and positive. One last quote from a graduating senior, somebody sitting here today. I came to Denison with a very tentative ideas of who I was and what my future was going to be. Looking back at my time at Denison, it's been through my relationships that I've learned more about who I am and what sets my soul on fire. I've received a lot of praise recently for my accomplishments at Denison, and while I appreciate the recognition for my hard work, I believe so much of the recognition also deserves to go to my friends, my teammates, my mentors, and my coaches who've offered support while challenging the limits that I set on myself. It's been through these relationships that I feel I've grown to better know myself. I'm indebted to Denison for creating the physical space in which I've cultivated some of the most influential and fulfilling relationships of my life. I'm indebted to the people I've built relationships with for making these past 4 years some of the most transformational years of my life and for making it so hard to leave. So I just want to end with a favor. Stay connected and committed to this college. Come back for your reunions. Put a Denison coffee mug on your desk at work, a bumper sticker on your car, and a pennant on your refrigerator at home. You are great people. We want the world to know you're Denisonians. Identify yourself so other members of our Denison extended family can do the same. And I'll end where I started. Congratulations to the great Denison class of 2024. It's been an honor and a privilege. So I'm now pleased to introduce Dr. Alex Miller, Vice President for Student Life, who will introduce the student speaker for the class of 2024.
Thank you, President Weinberg. Good morning, everyone. Oh, we can do better than that. Good morning. Wonderful, thank you. Before I introduce our student speaker, I must take a moment to offer heartfelt congratulations to the incredible Denison University class of 2024. You did it. Witnessing your growth and resilience over the past 4 years has been truly remarkable. It's been a privilege to see you all evolve from eager high school seniors into the inspiring Denisonians that sit before me today. As your Vice President, I am filled with gratitude for the journey we've shared together these past 4 years. May today mark the beginning of a new chapter for you filled with the very best moments of your lives. Congratulations to each and every one of you. Yes, congratulations. Now it is my pleasure to introduce our student speaker. It is our tradition at Denison that each year a member of the graduating class addresses the audience during the commencement ceremony. The speaker is chosen through a competitive process by a committee of students, faculty, and staff. This year's speaker is a communication and politics and public affairs double major. She has served our community in multiple ways as a student assistant in the Academic Resource Center, a marketing assistant in the University Communications Department, a writing center consultant, an August orientation leader for 2 years, and a member of the University Honor Committee. She has also actively worked to enlarge our perspective beyond her life on the Hill. She was nominated by the Liska Center to participate in the Athens Democracy Forum, where she spoke to an audience of dignitaries on the relationship between climate change and gender inequality. She founded Kolkata, nonprofit organization focused on the education and healthcare of underprivileged girls. And as president of the Denison International Student Association, she has worked to create an inclusive campus community. With her many accomplishments and her impact on our campus, it is no surprise that she is also a 2024 presidential medalist. Will you please welcome to the podium this year's student speaker, Priyanshi Kanoria.
Hello, everyone. So before I begin, I want to give a quick shout out to my mom. Thank you for everything, and I love you. Good morning and hello to the proud parents, distinguished faculty, alumni, staff, mentors, and friends. Thank you all so much for joining me and my fellow graduates on this very special occasion. I believe that today is made even more special for the class of 2024 since we had a rather unique start to our college journeys. Most of us graduated high school in 2020 without experiencing the kind of graduation that we are experiencing here today. When we started college, we had no idea what it would look like. Many of us, myself included, did a good chunk of our first year completely over Zoom. This is what makes today special. So congratulations to us, the class of 2024, the COVID class. Despite everything, we made it. I would like to divide the rest of my speech into 3 observations that I have made during my time here at Denison that I believe we can all relate to. My first observation is about the variety and richness in perspective that I have encountered here at Denison, which is unparalleled to anything that I've ever experienced before in my life. I have learned from the creativity of art majors in science classes. I have appreciated every time a fellow international student has shared a part of their culture with me. I have felt your passion at every involvement fair where you explain again and again the mission and purpose of your clubs and organizations, joined under the umbrella of wanting to make Denison a welcoming place for everyone. I have read your articles as you tirelessly work to make the world a more just place. And I've watched your talent in awe during the many exhibitions and performances. What I've said doesn't even begin to cover what every member of the class of 2024 has to contribute. I hope to have shown that Denison is anything but a place that you come to just study. It is this knowledge gained from being around such richness in perspective that makes us autonomous thinkers and discerning moral agents. It is this diversity in thought that allows us to appreciate what it means to live in a democratic society. And most importantly, it is the things that we learn from each other every single day that captures the essence of being in a liberal arts institution. My second observation is about the perseverance that the class of 2024 has shown. Think back to the August of 2020. We were the first class to start college during the pandemic. Never once did we let that fact deter us from making the absolute best of our college experience. Even when we weren't allowed to socialize inside our rooms, we took walks outside as a way of making new friends. Even though most of us had been quarantined for months, we were brave enough to strike up conversations with strangers during classes and during lunch. We made friends that turned into family at a time when socializing came with a list of caveats. We adapted to technology as it was being generated. We got vaccinated at a time when there was so much misinformation being spread. To quote Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. But now to misquote him, it was the age of 8 a.m. Zoom classes, and it was the age of mass smiles. It was the epic of social distancing. It was the epic of eating behind plexiglasses at Curtis. It was the season of virtual hugs, and it was the season of online friendships. But most importantly, it was the winter of despair that we, as a class, created into the spring of hope that we all find ourselves in here today. My third and final observation is that each and every one of us is ready for whatever life has to offer as we leave the hill today. When we were first starting at Denison, we were full of uncertainty and excitement. I bet those are the same emotions swirling around within many of us today. I'm sure there'll be many different phases in each of our lives where we will find ourselves on the precipice of such change and experiencing these very same emotions. However, remember the perseverance that I spoke about a few minutes ago? That's a part of us. The resilience with which we have approached our time here at Denison is something that will forever stay with us as we navigate the challenges and opportunities that come our way. Moreover, each new phase of our life will lay down another layer to our foundation that we will continue to build upon. So today, as we move on to the next phases of our lives, I hope that we leave with the comfort that we have the knowledge of the past and the agency of the present to inform the choices that we will make in the future. I would like to end on a personal note. It was 8 p.m. in Kolkata, India, and I was about to enter my first ever college class. It was a hybrid communication class called Rhetoric and the Common Good. However, except for me and another girl from Vietnam, everybody else was in person. As Dr. Jeffrey Kurtz admitted me into the meeting, I found myself projected on a screen halfway across the world in the middle of Ohio. That day, even though I was in the physical comfort of my childhood bedroom, I found myself more out of place than ever before. 4 years later, as I humbly stand before you all today, I can confidently say that I have never felt more at home. Thank you and congratulations.
So when I said a few minutes ago that Denison students are smart, wise, curious, creative, empathetic, and nice, there's Exhibit A. Can we give her one more round of applause? Priyanshi, I'm going to miss your presence on campus. I'm going to miss our casual conversations on the quad and watching tennis matches together. At this time, I'm going to invite the senior class co-governors, Alex Pan and Zora Whitfield, to come to the podium. It is my great honor to introduce two other smart, wise, curious, empathetic, and super nice human beings. These two happen to be the co-governors of the senior class, Zora Whitfield and Alex Pan, who will present the senior class gift.
Thank you. Hello and good afternoon, fellow members of the class of 2024, President Weinberg, esteemed faculty, administration, and beloved family and friends. We would like to take this moment to thank everyone who supported our Senior Class Gift Initiative this year. Will all of the 2024 Senior Class Legacy Challenge Committee members please rise to be recognized for your hard work? We would also like to recognize the outstanding leadership given by Jacob Lucas and Grace Prisby, this year's co-chairs for the committee. Thank you. Without you, none of this would have been possible. We encourage you to read in our programs the list of seniors and their families who have generously given to the 2024 Senior Class Legacy Challenge. We are extremely grateful for all of the gifts the college has given us, especially the opportunity to build a community through our years here. Now we look towards paying it forward on our own as we become members of the greater alumni community. Before we announce our class gift, we would like to thank our families and friends for their continued support of our Denison education. Thank you for cheering us on, and thank you for all of the support you have provided during our time on the Hill, including making gifts of your own to the annual fund. Your support of the annual fund helps offset nearly 1/3 of the cost of tuition that tuition doesn't cover to ensure that the life-changing education, career counseling, mentorship, student life programs, and so much more throughout our time here at Denison is accessible and available to every Denisonian.
So, before we talk about numbers, could we get a drum roll really quick? Kind of a weak drum roll. It is with great pleasure and excitement that we're announcing that the class of 2024 has raised over $10,000 with a 63% of our class participating in the senior class gift. We were so impressed with the number of classmates who decided to make a gift this year, and our senior class giving rate of, again, 63% is the highest of any graduating class in the college's history. We are so grateful for your support. Denisonians care deeply about each other. This year's Senior Class Legacy Challenge Committee members chose to highlight 5 funds while encouraging our class to give what resonates most with them. The 5 funds were financial aid and scholarships, the Center for Belonging and Inclusion, International Student Services, Student Wellness, and Student Life Community Building. These intentional decisions to give are special because the class of 2024 understands loss, hard work, and optimism in a distinct way. Our class will continue committing to opening the doors of opportunity for generations of Denisonians to come. Today's definitive moment exemplifies one clear message: never bet against Denisonians. And never bet against the class of 2024. Each of us sitting here today has benefited in some way from the financial support of the annual fund, and that support comes in part from alumni who have come before us. Someone wise once said, "There are many sad moments in life and fewer happy sad moments." I'd consider commencement to be a happy sad. However, as you might reflect on the liberating and dangerous game of what-ifs, know that you'll never have to explore this one alone. Even when times get tough, Denisonians have each other's backs. As one dream rests, a new dream rises. Classmates, good luck in your future pursuits and enjoy this day of celebration. Thank you to the Denison community at large for an incredible 4 years. After you.
Thank you, Alex and Zora. I feel very confident saying there's probably no campus activity and very few people on this campus you didn't touch in a positive way during your time here. So thank you for everything you did this year. Can we give them a moment a round of applause? So I now present to you the Chair of the Faculty, Sam Cowling, Associate Professor of Philosophy, who will recognize our retiring faculty members.
Hello. So each year at commencement, we pause to recognize the members of our faculty who are retiring or have retired over the past year. It is now my honor to recognize 5 members of the Denison faculty whose collective exemplary service to this college totals 168 years. Full descriptions of their programs, our backgrounds and accomplishments appear in your program. Their contributions to this community of learning will be deeply missed. Will you please stand to be recognized as I call your names? Tony King, Black Studies and Women's and Gender Studies, 27 years. Sadly, Dr. King cannot join us today. Tony King came to Denison in 1997 and holds a joint appointment in Black Studies and Women's and Gender Studies. She has served as the director for the Center of Black Studies for many years, as the Associate Provost for Faculty Diversity from 2009 to 2014, as a founding member of the Faculty of Color International Faculty Group since 2008, and as co-chair of the Black Caucus since 2006. Dr. King teaches introductory courses in Black Studies and Women's and Gender Studies, as well as a range of courses, including those in her area of specialization, Black women and organizational leadership. Dr. King is known for her generosity, wisdom, and support as a mentor for her colleagues and her students. She was named to the Richard Lucier Endowed Chair from 2018 to 2023, and held the Charles and Nancy Brickman Distinguished Leadership Chair from 2020 to 2024. Peter Posey, theater, 30 years. Playwright, director, and designer. Peter Posey began teaching at Denison in 1994. With nearly 100 theater productions to his credit, he both designs and supervises students who design scenery and lighting for our Denison Theater Department productions. He has taught almost everything the theater department offers, including classes and workshops in scenic and lighting design, playwriting, musical theater, and theatrical theory. He has written original plays that have been produced at regional and educational theaters, including at Denison. In addition, he's designed scenery for many regional theaters in Columbus. Chuck Sokolik. Chemistry and biochemistry, 30 years. Dr. Sokolik came to Denison in 1993 and was the architect of the biochemistry major that has been an academic core for over 300 Denison graduates. He taught a wide range of courses, including general chemistry, intermediate and advanced biochemistry, and environmental chemistry. He was a consultant for the Ohio Department of Education and advised Buckeye Valley High School on the redesign of their 9th and 10th grade science curriculum. As a researcher, he studied post-translational modifications of proteins and collaborated with a local engineering firm on the design of electrostatic printing instruments that synthesizes small microarrays of peptides or enzymes on silicon chips. Dr. Sokolik chaired the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry from 2000 to 2004 and served as the chair of the faculty from 2005 to 2006. He has served the college in a variety of other ways, including as a posse mentor, coordinator and mentor with the Denison-Columbus Alliance, as an international student advisor for June orientation, as secretary-treasurer of the Denison chapter of Phi Beta Kappa. Sandy Runzo. English, 38 years. Sandy Runzo began teaching at Denison in 1986, specializing in American literature and culture, women writers, and queer writers. Sandy is the author of the book Theatricals of Day, Emily Dickinson in the 19th Century American Popular Culture, as well as essays that have appeared in leading journals like American Literature Esquire, Journal of the American Renaissance, and the Emily Dickinson Journal. She served as the chair of the English department from 2002 to 2007, director of the Women's and Gender Studies program from 2008 to 2009, and director of the Queer Studies program in 2014-2015, and again from 2018 to 2021. She also held the Lorena Woodrow Burke Chair of English from 2017 to 2022. Garrett Jacobson. Classical Studies, 42 years. Professor Jacobson has been at Denison since 1984, teaching Latin and Greek and courses on the history and culture of ancient Greece and Rome. A scholar of Roman poetry, he is particularly interested in the work of the poet Ovid. Dr. Jacobson created Loca Antiqua, a summer program that took students to Italy and Greece from 1993 to 2003. From 1998 to 2001, he served with Dr. Tony Liska as an assistant director of the honors program. He worked for the Johns Hopkins University Center for Talented Youth as the academic dean of humanities, their summer program at his alma mater, Franklin and Marshall, and then as site director at Skidmore College. He has worked in the advanced placement Latin examination since 2007, currently serving as question leader. Perhaps his most enduring legacy will be the many students with whom he has formed a lasting bond, including a number of Denison students who are now his classics colleagues at colleges around the country. Our deepest thanks to each of you for all that you have done for this great college. Thank you.
The faculty do form the core of this great college. Can we give them one more round of applause? So Denison has a long tradition of taking time at commencement to honor people who have achieved at the highest distinction in their fields, whose work has had a broad impact in society, and who exemplify the ideals of the college. Today, we are privileged to honor Philip Glotzbach, an educator, scholar, author, higher education thought leader, and a Denisonian. I urge you to read about his many accomplishments in his bio in the commencement program. At this time, I would like to invite Professor Cowling to the lectern to present our honoree.
Mr. President, I am pleased to present Philip Glotzbach for the candidate for the honorary degree, Doctor of Humane Letters.
The trustees of Denison University, by virtue of the authority vested in them and upon recommendation of the faculty thereof, confer upon Philip A. Glotzbach, Professor Emeritus of Skidmore College, educator, author, and leader in higher education, thinker, and interlocutor, asking to consider the question of what a college education is for, a philosopher, dean, and administrator, a writer, speaker, and commentator, willing to address matters unspoken and issues underdressed, an interdisciplinary thinker who has brought to the Academy a wide-ranging intellect while affirming the matters of the mind must also address concerns of justice and here and now, engaging the campuses he has served, as well as all in education who will listen, a friend of Denison through the years. As one who has made the vital connections between liberal arts and responsible citizenship, seeking to interweave both science, literacy, and liberal arts, building both the physical structures of a campus along with the less visible framework of a college, with an enduring interest in developing leadership and citizenship on campuses from his Denison home and far beyond. We present the degree, Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa, given in Granville in the state of Ohio, this 11th day of May 2024, being the 248th year of the Republic and of the University 193rd. Phil, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees and on recommendation of the faculty, it is my great honor and privilege to confer upon you the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. The chair of the faculty will invest you with the hood appropriate to your degree. It is my honor to present you with this Denison diploma. And now for something I've been looking forward to doing for a while. We're pleased not only to be able to honor Phil today, but to be able to hear from him as our keynote speaker. Phil is truly a leader in higher education, with a career spanning over 4 decades. He served as president of Skidmore College for 17 years, from 2004 to 2020. Under his leadership, Skidmore developed and implemented 2 ambitious strategic plans, increased financial aid, increased diversity in the student body and faculty, and undertook several much-needed building projects. These are just a few of the many, many, many examples of Skidmore's progress under his tenure. Before Skidmore, Phil served for 11 years at the University of Redlands, first as dean in the College of Arts and Sciences, and later as vice president for academic affairs. And we are especially proud that Phil is a Denisonian. He was truly one of the great teachers, mentors, and advisors during his years here when he taught in the Department of Philosophy for 15 years, from 1997 to 1992. Generations of students had their lives shaped by his wisdom and mentorship. In my world of college presidents, I don't want to date myself, but it's a little bit like welcoming Babe Ruth back home and to the stage. There's nobody who had a more successful presidency or was more widely respected by people in higher ed than Phil. So we're thrilled to welcome him back to the Hill and to hear what he has to share with us. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Philip Glotzbach as our keynote speaker.
Let's get this straight. Good morning. Thank you, Professor Cowling and President Weinberg. And sincere appreciation as well to all members of the Denison faculty and to the Board of Trustees for this unexpected and truly humbling honor. I'll do my best to live up to it both today and in the future. Thanks, too, for allowing me to claim something in common with another Denison honorary degree recipient, Jennifer Garner. What's on your diploma? Way back in 1977, I know that's ancient history to students, members of the Denison Philosophy Department, David Goldblatt, Tony Liska, Ron Santoni, and Joan Stramanis, took a chance by offering a faculty position to an eager but untested fifth-year graduate student who, true confession, lacked a completed doctoral dissertation. And the administration took a chance as well by writing a contract that included the stipulation, tenure possible. I don't believe anyone had a clue just what that meant, but times being what they were, I happily took the job. All told, we spent 15 wonderful years at Denison and in Granville. I learned what it meant to be a faculty member at a school that offered unparalleled educational opportunities to its students. I also experienced the power of collegial and institutional support for cross-disciplinary research and teaching, with enduring thanks to Mike Mickelson in physics, Harry Heft in psychology, who became a valued collaborator and lifelong friend. So I just want to start by expressing my deepest thanks to everyone at Denison, including subsequent philosophy colleagues such as Steve Vogel, and to our many friends in the Granville community and beyond who encouraged and supported us along the way, some of whom have joined us here today. And now, to my fellow members of the Denison class of 2024, and to senior parents and faculty members and friends as well, heartfelt congratulations. Graduates, you deserve to feel proud of all you've accomplished on your path leading up to today. So enjoy your well-earned victory lap, especially since, as several people have noted already, COVID robbed you of your high school commencement ceremony 4 years ago. Along with President Weinberg, I congratulate you for your perseverance, your determination, and grit in navigating the early years of your Denison career under the COVID shadow. And as you've no doubt noticed, commencements bring out an almost uncontrollable urge on the part of your elders to render sage advice. Well, that's your cross to bear, but take heart, the day will soon be over. And contrary to what I've just said, I'll try to go light on the advice. Instead, I'm going to make just 3 requests of you, and we'll get to those in a moment. So let me ask us to suspend our celebration for just a short while to think together about a serious issue that could not be timelier or more deserving of our collective attention: democracy, specifically the present state of our own democratic republic and your future role in it. Most generations face their own catalog of wicked problems, and they tend to feel unique and more daunting than those of the past. You could identify the complex issues now confronting us as well as I. Let's just agree that the list is long and distinguished. My use of the phrase wicked problems isn't an artifact of having lived for some time in the Northeast. It's actually a technical term that's increasingly being used in these conversations. You may have encountered it in your coursework. It refers to large, unstructured problems that cannot be resolved by relying upon just one area of knowledge or a single linear mode of thought. Fortunately, the liberal arts education President Weinberg just celebrated gives you precisely what you need to understand and tackle those kind of problems. And here's another bit of good news. Wicked problems frequently come with an upside. For example, seriously taking on the climate crisis could well lead to new technologies for reducing greenhouse gases on a global scale, innovative ways to provide food and water for the growing global population, other large and small projects to make the world more sustainable and equitable, especially in energy production, distribution, and use, and perhaps even novel ways to reimagine how societies function and how nations of the world can interact and cooperate. Again, wicked problems generally combine this mix of challenges and opportunities, possibilities. We just have to identify the opportunities and find the political will to realize them. To return to our most wicked problem, freedom and democracy are under assault today, both around the world and here at home. A recent annual report from a nonpartisan international monitoring organization concluded that in 2023, and for the 18th consecutive year, global freedom declined, primarily because of widespread problems with elections, including violence and manipulation. A different study of popular attitudes in 19 countries, each with some form of democratic government, found that people do not believe that democracy is delivering in both cases. These negative perceptions are fueling a troubling rise in favorable perceptions of a form of government that is the diametric opposite of democracy, autocracy. Two distressing manifestations of this trend in our own nation are an increasing public support for political violence on both the left and the right, and the extreme political polarization of our population, the likes of which we have not seen since the Vietnam War era, and perhaps not since the Civil War. These divisions are being exacerbated by a torrent of intentionally deceptive social media posts, many originating in hostile foreign countries, that seek to widen those divides. As historian Heather Cox Richardson puts it, we are in the midst of a storm of disinformation designed to undermine the key institutions of our democracy, particularly the rule of law. And if you choose to get most of your information about the world through social media, you're placing yourself directly in the path of that hurricane. Not surprisingly, members of your generation also expressed concerns about where our nation is at present, where we are headed, and whether having a democratically elected government is even important to our future. To be sure, democracies have their liabilities. History is convincing. This form of government tends to be messy, inefficient, and sometimes frustrating for its citizens. In fact, Winston Churchill once remarked that democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others. In the context of all the concerns being expressed today, it's more important than ever that we understand why democracy is important and do all we can to preserve and protect it. All right, so why does this matter? More to the point, why should you care about it, today of all days? Doubtless, concerns about democracy can sound pretty abstract and far removed from your day-to-day interests. But let me assure you, there are no greater threats to our shared future than the present attacks upon democracy and the potential rise of autocracy in our nation. People attracted to the idea of making our government more autocratic tend to believe it would produce immediate political results that they would like to see, outcomes that are stymied by our current legal and political structures. But those who are sympathetic with this movement have forgotten a crucial lesson from history, one that was very much on the minds of the American founders when they created for the first time a United States of America. The story is familiar. America's 18th century leaders had lived for years under what they regarded as an oppressive foreign government. Nearly 2/3 of the Declaration of Independence cataloged the, quote, repeated injuries and usurpations, unquote, Americans had endured under an authoritarian British king. Less than a generation later, these experiences were foregrounded once again in the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, that expressly protect those freedoms that citizens of the new nation considered most at risk, including freedom of speech and press, the freedom to peaceably assemble, security from the, quote, unreasonable searches and seizures they had experienced, and freedom of conscience, which precluded any governmental establishment of religion. The goal was to invent a new nation founded on the principle that all citizens deserve respect and that freedom was the crucial ingredient in an enlightened, self-determined, and just state. Liberty was and is to be the antidote to tyranny. Now, we know that these protections have by no means been applied equally, either at the time of our founding or today. The struggle to extend basic constitutional rights to women, blacks, Native Americans, and so many other groups has been a defining theme across the history of our nation. In some cases, the fight became bloody, most significantly in the Civil War, and unfortunately on too many later occasions. In those efforts, however, these foundational democratic values, respect, dignity, liberty, self-determination, the rule of law, and over the course of American history, equality, have served as essential reference points for reformers, from Frederick Douglass to Susan B. Anthony, from Ella Baker to Bayard Rustin, from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to John R. Lewis. Many of these courageous patriots laid their lives on the line to expand the reach of civil rights. Time and again, in calling for fundamental social and legal change, American reformers elevated our basic democratic values as a mirror against which to judge existing political realities, to hold elected leaders accountable for current wrongs, and charge them to extend equal protection under the law to all. It's far too easy for those of us who've always lived under such hard-won legal protections and these fundamental democratic values to take them for granted. But people who do so would be well advised to consider what happens when such legal guardrails are removed. In his acclaimed play, A Man for All Seasons, Robert Bolt incisively captures what is at stake in a brief exchange between his protagonist, Sir Thomas More, and More's idealistic son-in-law, William Roper. William Roper: "So now you give the devil benefit of the law." Sir Thomas More: "Yes, what would you do? Cut a great road through the law to get after the devil?" Roper: "Yes, I'd cut down every law in England to do that." More: "Oh? And when that last law was down and the devil turned round on you, where would you hide, Roper? The laws all being flat. This country is planted thick with laws from coast to coast, man's laws, not God's. And if you cut them down and you're just the man to do it, do you really think you could stand upright in the winds that would blow then? Yes, I'd give the devil benefit of the law for my own safety's sake." History has demonstrated, whether in Nazi Germany or Vladimir Putin's Russia, that autocrats cannot be depended upon to safeguard the legal rights or liberty of anyone under their authority, even those who help place them in power. Conversely, the rule of law represents our primary, and in fact our ultimate, defense against the arbitrary use of force and violence, whether by individual citizens against one another or by the government itself. As Bolt reminds us, we abandon these legal constraints at our own peril. To live under autocracy is to live in perpetual fear, and what rational person would choose to abide under such rule? So, what is to be done? To begin, let's determine to forsake despair. Ernest Hemingway wrote that the world is a fine place and worth fighting for. Well, I believe that our nation, for all its faults, also remains a fine place and worth fighting for. We need to do everything we can to rediscover and bolster our faith in democracy and act as citizens to elevate our politics to a higher level, more in line with our fundamental civic values. But doing so will require all of us to participate. To move beyond our present situation, we need more democracy, not less. We need more civic engagement, not less. We need more responsible citizenship and more informed voting, not less. And these civic obligations extend especially to you as graduates of one of the world's finest liberal arts colleges. We talk about liberal education a lot. Well, that notion, the idea of liberal education, traces its origin to the Roman orator Cicero's use of the Latin word liber, meaning free. First and foremost, he said, a liberal education provides the appropriate intellectual training for a free citizen. That is, someone who not only is able to decide what to do, but who also accepts responsibility for deciding what to believe. Someone, we might add, who's privileged to be a citizen in a democratic republic. If we can build on the basis of our liberal education, hold fast to our commitment to the fundamental values of our republic, and retain our faith in a better future, then it becomes possible to act in ways that increase the chances of that positive future we would most like to see actually coming to be. In a moment when fundamental concepts such as truth and fact have come under withering partisan attack, our democracy desperately needs your help to lift up both our public and private discourse, to reclaim our political life as a space in which authenticated facts, as opposed to alternative facts, and sound arguments overcome groundless assertions, invalid or unsound arguments, and even outright lies. Again, your liberal education, which positions you to pursue a successful professional life, has also prepared you to contribute to this essential civic work. In the words of Denison's mission statement, as autonomous thinkers, discerning moral agents, and active citizens, people who understand that democracies are most often toppled not by bullets, but by ballots. Let me bring this discussion down to an even more pragmatic level and make my 3 specific requests of you in the name of democracy and freedom. First, and most obviously, each of us needs to make sure we're registered to vote, and then always make it a priority to exercise that essential right. In fact, to vote as if our freedom and our future depend upon it, because they absolutely do. This is probably not a hard sell to you, for despite the concerns about democracy expressed by members of your age cohort, a 2022 Tufts University study reported that 75% of young people responding agree that voting is an important way to have a say in the future. I trust that every one of you Denisonians is among that 75%. So let's leverage that commitment by understanding that every election matters, not just those that decide the presidency. The stakes are simply too high for any of us to go into political hibernation between national elections. And frankly, we need to be much smarter about which political leaders we elect and more determined to hold them accountable in subsequent elections for living up to the basic norms of our democracy. Voting choices matter, and every vote counts, especially yours. Second, I call upon all of us to reject the idea that our fellow citizens who hold opposing political views, including those that may seem hateful or even dangerous, have somehow become the enemy. If we are to participate in the work of healing our damaged republic, we need to project those basic democratic norms, especially respect, upon all our fellow citizens, not just those who share our beliefs. We can disagree in the strongest... Yeah, thank you. That's right. That's right. We can disagree in the strongest possible terms. We can totally reject someone's political position, but if we give in to the temptation to define them as the irredeemable other, as the enemy, then we've become part of the problem. For individual citizens, the work of motivating positive change and bridging the chasm that threatens to separate us into warring political camps begins by embracing what I take to be the fundamental question of democracy. What would it take to change your mind? If we are to participate effectively in the public and private conversations that are the lifeblood of any democracy, we need to answer that question for ourselves and insist that others entertain it as well. Specifically, before I can expect you to change your mind, I need to be prepared to alter my own opinions in response to effective persuasion or new information. Economist John Maynard Keynes is credited with saying, "When the facts change, I change my mind. What do you do?" And if you think I'm sounding too much like Pollyanna, let me offer just one hopeful example of how this kind of change is, in fact, possible. It's the story of 2 Skidmore students I met during my presidency, Abdul and Jacob. Abdul grew up in a Palestinian refugee camp in Damascus, Syria, one of the most inhospitable environments imaginable, one that offered few, if any, prospects for his future. Fortunately, when he was a teenager, Abdul was able to escape his home country at great personal risk and traveled to Northern Europe, where he earned a scholarship to study in an outstanding international high school. Eventually, he made his way to the United States for college. Based on his life experience, Abdul came to Skidmore with strong opinions about Middle Eastern politics, especially regarding the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Understandably, he was highly critical of the state of Israel's policies. But soon after he arrived on campus, Abdul met another first-year student, Jacob, who was Jewish American. Abdul had never known any Jewish people before, For his part, this was Jacob's first opportunity for a face-to-face interaction with a Palestinian. And of course, he had his own strong beliefs about the Middle East. Right away, Jacob and Abdul started arguing about politics. As their conversations continued, they gave each other articles from the Council on Foreign Relations, the Journal of Foreign Affairs, and looked for other ways to support their positions. But they never gave up on their vigorous discussions. They always stayed in the room with one another. In time, Jacob and Abdul came to know one another better, and something remarkable started to happen. They realized they actually liked each other. Their mutual respect grew into a genuine friendship. As they continued to talk, they began to understand more about each other's point of view. They also realized that their own political perspectives had been limited by their backgrounds. They didn't change all their beliefs, but they modified many of them in significant ways. Most importantly, they continued to talk. They continued to talk, and they each gained more nuanced perspectives on Israel, the struggles of the Palestinian people, and ultimately the entire Middle East. Looking back, Abdul commented, "I now have a more complex and comprehensive view of the world because I spent time understanding and living with the other. I think my presence also contributed in the other direction. It helped my fellow students' views of the world become more complex and well-rounded." Regarding Abdul, Jacob remarked, "I've never had and likely never will have a friendship as mesmerizing as what we shared in college." This transformation and complication of Abdul and Jacob's viewpoints embodies a crucial learning outcome of liberal education. Once again, the ability to change one's mind. Another takeaway from this story is that helping someone modify their beliefs often requires connecting with them in an authentic relationship. I'm confident that you've experienced some version of this story during your own Denison journey, when you've met someone who at first may have seemed off-putting, perhaps coming from a very different background from yours. But another of the most important gifts of liberal education is the realization that you cannot read another person's story from their face or how they may initially present themselves to you. You have to get to know the particulars of their life before you can discover what they are all about, including what you might be able to learn from them or they from you. Abdul and Jacob's beautiful friendship became possible because both of them satisfied several crucial requirements. They approached one another in good faith, with a willingness not just to talk, but also to listen, and again, with the possibility of changing their minds. Sadly, some people do seem incapable of meeting these conditions, and so with them, the path to understanding may remain blocked. But if we, all of us, we who are privileged to enjoy the benefits of liberal learning, cannot undertake this work of reaching out across difference, who can? If two individuals initially separated by such deeply rooted historical enmities can do this, then surely we can attempt it with our fellow citizens. Specifically, therefore, let us recommit to affirming the humanity we share with all our fellow citizens and dare to take the first step to reach out to someone else, even someone whose political views may seem radically opposed to our own. Let us expect the unexpected. The alternative to surrender to cynicism leads down the path to despair and utter hopelessness, a path to nowhere. We've seen past generations step up to and confront and overcome their challenges. I'm confident that your generation is up to the task to build bridges instead of fanning conflict. More than 160 years ago, on the site of a pivotal Civil War battle that in 3 days of horrific fighting had claimed the lives of more than 50,000 Union and Confederate soldiers, Abraham Lincoln exhorted his audience to highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from this earth. These words resonate today in the choices we confront in our politics and in the voting booth. So in that spirit, here's my third and final request of you. Please bring that perseverance, determination, and grit, which we referenced earlier, to your life as an informed, responsible citizen. And please, 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 don't give up on democracy. To the Denison University class of 2024, best wishes for a spectacular future. Thank you for your kind attention. Thank you. Thank you.
Phil, I am proud to call you a friend, a colleague, but most importantly, a Denisonian. Can we give him one more round of applause? And now for what we've been waiting for. It is my honor to call upon the Provost of the College, Dr. Kim Coplin, to preside over the presentation of candidates in the awarding of the baccalaureate degrees as authorized by the faculty of Denison University.
Will the members of the class of 2024 please stand? Mr. President, I have the honor of presenting for their degrees the members of the Denison University class of 2024.
By virtue of the authority vested in me by the Board of Trustees of Denison University, and on the recommendation of the faculty, I affirm the conferral of each of your degrees upon receipt of your diploma with all the rights, privileges, and responsibilities appertaining thereto. Congratulations. Can we give them a round of applause? So Provost Coplin is now going to read the names of the graduates as they walk across the stage. You will notice as she reads the names that there are a fair amount of abstentions today. Some of that is normal, but we have an unusually large number of athletes off playing in the NCAA tournament. So we wish them the best of luck and thank them for representing us today.
Class co-governors, Alex Pan. Zora Kitwana Whitfield. President's medalists, Caroline Christine Bodery, summa cum laude. Toria Catrone, magna cum laude. Catherine Claire Voigt Griffin, magna cum laude. Nadeem Jones, summa cum laude. Priyanshi Kanoria, summa cum laude, class valedictorian. Jackson Ryan Niemesheim, magna cum laude. Taylor Nicole Trimble, magna cum laude. Maximilian Jacob Wisniewski, summa cum laude. Graduates receiving the Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, Rita Costa, cum laude. Ava Lorraine Peterson, cum laude. Lily M. Thomas. Candidates receiving the Bachelor of Science degree: Patricia Nana Ama Nketsiaba Ishin. Miles Beal, cum laude. Ty Belleville. Corinne Boyd. Monica Bradford, summa cum laude. Olivia Marguerite Brenner, summa cum laude. Lula Lane Burke, magna cum laude. Louis Sabin Chafin. In absentia, Shihan Chen. Eva Donegan Coleman, summa cum laude. Harrison Copeland. Quay Dow. Noah DeFilippo. Mavis Ding, cum laude. Uhan Fu, summa cum laude. Rachel Furge. Christopher Gilio. Raghav Goyal. Emma Goss. Ian Greer, summa cum laude. Mallory Hallworth, magna cum laude. Catherine Grace Harding. Mary Kate Healy, summa cum laude. Brooklyn K. Heller. Elliot Gordon Hegel, summa cum laude. Annie Hogue. Suan Hong, cum laude. Jack Johannesson. U Kim. Maddie Kurtz. In absentia, Uyen P. Lei. Min A. Lei. Ji-yoon Lee. Alexandra Jean Leeper, magna cum laude. David Luffman, cum laude. In absentia, Tung Liu, summa cum laude. Olivia Roxanne Mahaffey. Rebecca Leanne Martin, cum laude. Lara McHale. John Alexander Mendez. Hannah R. Minoski. Kevin Munn. Adriana Grace Muniz, cum laude. Lynn Nguyen, cum laude. Min V. Nguyen. Ava Oberly. Nicholas Olitas. Zoe Pedersen, summa cum laude. Tao Pham, magna cum laude. Puricha Panwang. Lauren Rutherford, cum laude. Jillian Elizabeth Salmon, summa cum laude. Jackson Schaefer, cum laude. Nicholas Robert Sedembrine, cum laude. Parker Alexander Smith. Margaret Spriggs, magna cum laude. Victoria Caroline Stamato. Samuel O. Sullivan, in absentia. Anita Tamang. Rohan Tripathi, cum laude. Fabrizio Vasallo, summa cum laude, class valedictorian. Esme Elizabeth Wright, magna cum laude. Henry Zhang, magna cum laude. Cameron Mingli Ziegenfuss. Candidates receiving the Bachelor of Arts degree, Lokesh Acharya. Jonathan Mitchell Adamson. Karayan Edjay Okoso. In absentia, Viraj Agarwal. Christian Agalopoulos. Caitlin Ahern. Joshua Ayalo. Claire Alexander. Michaela Amato. Katie Amrine, summa cum laude. Lily Anderson, cum laude. Nicholas Charles Anderson. Claire Grace Anderson. Alexandra Elizabeth Andres, cum laude. Gerald Jordan Anfinson. Daniel Ansah Akrafi. Kiara Monique Ansley Hines, cum laude. Mohammed Noor Ashrifa. Olivia Atley. Nelson Ross G. Austria. Emily Asa. Victoria Bambaro. Maya Bannock. Laura Barkley. Nicole Christine Barnes, summa cum laude. William J. Barnes. In absentia, Jalen N. Barnes. Amy Christine Berry, magna cum laude. Ava Batzel. Michael Bednarik. Ibrahim Iheb Bakib. In absentia, Ethan R. Bennett. Kalia Danielle Bennett. Olivia Lynn Bernard, summa cum laude. Zoe Helen Bernstein. Thomas Berry, magna cum laude. Larissa Bell Bierman. Araman Biani, magna cum laude. Bobby Bland. Claudia Blankenship. Caroline Bonebreak. Matthew Bonner. Madeline Borger, magna cum laude. Brooke Bossart, magna cum laude. Colleen O'Sullivan Boyle, magna cum laude. Jairus Branch. Alaya Lynn Brennan, summa cum laude. In absentia, Clyde H. Bresnahan. Takis Brown, cum laude. Jacob Brown. Evan Shelby Brown. Andrew Butler Brown. Anna Eileen Busher. In absentia, William Bugg. Allison Burns. Emmett Burnside. Ashley Butler. Alessandra Kakamo. Yiting Sai, cum laude. Chasey P. Campbell. In absentia, Jack W. Chase. Oliver Chairs. Anna Chargeshvili. Ara Daniela Chavez Martinez. Isabel Chen. Jiray Cheng. Arun Chetri. In absentia, William Christakos. Peyton Clue. Allison Nicole Collins, magna cum laude. Sophia Ming Kalapi. Gabriela R. Contreras. Amira Cordero Gaddis, cum laude. Cade Cormier. Theodore Cornejo. Caitlin Cormish, cum laude. Jude Dubois Countryman. Catherine Coward. Cassidy Marie Crane. Paige Elizabeth Cromwell. In absentia, Brooks Kirk Crowley. Samuel Collier, cum laude. William Cunningham, summa cum laude. Catherine Rose Dampier. Cha Mai Dung, magna cum laude. Ming Dao, magna cum laude. In absentia, Archer T. Derrick. Ryan Elizabeth Dara. Hannah Lana Davies. Caroline Haddix Davis, cum laude. Isabella De Assis Wilson. Mia A. DeCurcio. Isabel De Combas. Clay Denstorf. Kelly A. Durasmo. Jake Dominic DiMantova. Nathan Dingus. Alexander William Dobbins. May Ann Doran. Anna Helen Doran. Nina Downing. In absentia, Paige Duffy. Edward Robert Dunn. Hua Holly Zong, magna cum laude. Owen D. Emma Marie East. Lauren LeSeward Ehlers, magna cum laude. Sophia Ellerkman, cum laude. Natalie Monroe English. Catherine Ivanko, magna cum laude. Uhen Fen, magna cum laude. Zhang Fang. Lucas Felice. Madeline Fenton. In absentia, Luke A. Fisher. Taria Patricia Fitch. Joshua D. Flagel. Ryan Forback. James T. Franco. Isabella Fratangelo. In absentia, Margaret K. French. Benjamin Fry. Cameron Max Friedauer. Henry David Gamble, magna cum laude. Caroline Spencer Gerard, cum laude. Abraham Nagesh Galen. Tessa Juliet Gerhardt. J. William Gimble V. Lily Elizabeth Goers. Zoe Gooch. Trevor Goodrich. Frances Grace Goodwin. Whitney A. Gray. Emily Helena Gerlakis, cum laude. Jianheng Guo. Anish Gurjar. In absentia, Yulia Hiley. Harrison Ham. Grace Tae Young Han, magna cum laude. Heather Marie Hanley. Abigail Greeley Haino, magna cum laude. Connolly Hardin. Emily Harris, magna cum laude. Mallory Ann Hartzell, cum laude. Kara Hardy, magna cum laude. James Harvey, cum laude. Michaela Hassler. Hughji Singh. Yuhan Ho. Sarah K. Healy. Anna Heinrichs. Sarah Elizabeth Kirsch Heithaus, summa cum laude. Mary Catherine Henning. Matthew Hernandez. J.C. Don Hirschberger, summa cum laude. Colin William Hill. Catherine Tomberlin Hinshaw, cum laude. Michael Worth Hinshaw III. Tung Wang, cum laude. In absentia, Feng Di Huang, cum laude. Thomas Hoffheimer. Kelsey Abigail Hogan. Megan Hoven. Susan Huang, magna cum laude. Yiren Huang. Zwar Hui. Emmeline Holtman. Emma Hunter. Kef Nasser Hussein. Anastasia Ignatovich, cum laude. Catherine Emmisberger. Mohammed Ali Imran. Melina Infante, summa cum laude. Madeline Ireland. Neve Jacobson. Charlotte Grace Jaffe, summa cum laude. Eduardo Hara, Jr. Asher Jasonides. Henry Scanlon Jenks. Kunyang Ji. Laura Linnea Jolson. Raviana Simone Johnson, cum laude. Davis Johnson. Anna Jones, magna cum laude. Sarah Frances Jones, cum laude. Duncan William Jones, cum laude. David Judd. Olivia Kathleen Jump, cum laude. Pratham Kondal. In absentia, Nathan Kay. Claire Faulkner Keeley, cum laude. Megan Keller. Lily Anush Kernigan. Isaiah M. Kessler. Catherine Grace Killian, magna cum laude. Kat B. Yol Kim, summa cum laude, class valedictorian. Alana King, cum laude. Charles King. Alexis Nip, magna cum laude. Caleb Kramer, magna cum laude. Connor Kratzert. Ryan Lally. Hannah Lambaron. Luke Landis. William Griffith Lane. Ni La, magna cum laude. Lesuang Huang. Lena Le. Elizabeth Lyons Lee. Noah Lieb, cum laude. Sophia Acho LeMay, magna cum laude. Liam James Lanzati. In absentia, Weiyong Lee. Grace Lorraine Liebler. Sarah Gabrielle Lim, cum laude. Grace Lapuma, cum laude. Renan Liu, cum laude. Yushen Liu. Grace Suzanne Locke, magna cum laude. Oakley E. Lorson. Jacob Lucas, magna cum laude. Josephine Lane Lucchese. Patrick Lucy. Jane Lukens. Lynn Lee, summa cum laude. In absentia, Cyrus G. McCachran. Kirby Alexis McKinnon, magna cum laude. In absentia, Andrew E. Mackler. Mackenzie Mallory. George Anton Maninong. Benjamin Marshall. Phoebe Martin. Carrie Mock. Simon Morin. Michael Maynard. Alina Maitan. Neil Kamal Mazumdar. Malcolm McDonough. Elliot Manning McGrath. Willow Roan McIlvain Newsad, cum laude. Marin Talia McIlvain Newsad. Megan McManus, summa cum laude. Claire S. McNamara. Michael Parker Mead. Eleanor Jane Maynardi. Ava Mitchell. Punyatoya Mahapatra. Alexandra Brennan Moon, cum laude. In absentia, Octavia Molkenthin. CJ Monteiro. Isabel Ann Monyak. Jeffrey F. Moore. Dylene Elizabeth Morfa. Madison Kylie Morell. Anna J. Monroe, cum laude. Thomas Murphy. Samuel Maillard. Kazi Manjuma Haknafas, in absentia. In absentia, Gustav J. Nathanson. In absentia, Tu H. Nguyen, summa cum laude. Tu Nguyen, summa cum laude. Hong N. T. Nguyen, cum laude. Hal Nguyen, cum laude. An N. Nguyen, cum laude. Mi H. Nguyen. Kiet T. Nguyen. Duke M. Nguyen. Min D. Nguyen. Min Nguyen. Jonathan Nan. William Mason Noble. Lashana Noel. Chief Kwabena Ofusu Siao, cum magna cum laude. Mia Elizabeth Olson. In absentia, Owen McManus O'Neill. Alexandra D. Orfanos. Sydney Consuela Orison, cum laude. Ana Linda Ortiz de Rosa. Sophia Park. Arth Patel. Tristan Payton. Ella G. Payne. Anna Pelosi. Ava Madicott Peterson. Genevieve Francis Feaster, summa cum laude. Min Phuc Pham. Ann Tu Pham. Quan Phi. Anna Pine. Adelaide Pittenger. Nicholas Casimir Podesta. Nate Podolsky. Amy Marie Pollock, magna cum laude. In absentia, Zach Portnoy. Lily Prawl. Grace Elizabeth Prisby, summa cum laude. Evelyn Puma. CJ Q. Yana Emily Quill. Janine Anna Quigley, cum laude. Anna Race. Alexander Rahman. Talia Esther Rader Roth, summa cum laude. Varun Ramakrishnan. In absentia, Andrew J. Randall. Reese Rao, cum laude. Colin Cosgrove Raven, magna cum laude. Benjamin Rayhill. Samarpan Rebmi, magna cum laude. Ava Reischuk, summa cum laude. Elizabeth Juwan Reiser, summa cum laude. Lillian Rennie. Hayden Findley Reno. In absentia, Ethan G. Rice. Gavin Gill Rickety. Jacob Rivas. Julia Taylor Rizzo, cum laude. Bailey Roberts. Merrill G. Rollhouse. Mikey Rose. Samantha Paul Rosenblum. Ari Rubin. Reina Soleil Runk, summa cum laude. Abigail Louise Ruth. William C. Ryan. In absentia, Hilton A. Sanchez. Masaki Sato. In absentia, Thomas Dunn Sleisner. Kendall Schrader. Casey Schrader. Greta Schreiber, magna cum laude. Shane Ray Schultz. Sam Seacrest, magna cum laude. Nicholas Hart Selden. Caitlin Seltzer. Erme Shefflin. In absentia, Nicole R. Sherrick. Wen Yi Shi. Emma Schulman. Chloe Annabelle Faison Sig. Francesca Page Cilio. Eitan Silver, cum laude. Kylie Silverman. Claire Alexandra Simons. Derek Srebor. Alexander Christian Skett. Holston Slack. In absentia, Jack H. Slode. David Smalley. McClellan Smith. Evan Snively. Olivia Lee Snyder. Sophia Corinne Sabato, summa cum laude. Peter Stabler. Catherine Staus. Elijah Emmanuel Thompson Stein, magna cum laude. Sadie Steiner. Paul Allen Sternberg. Richie Stewart. Jimmy Steins. Brian Stone, cum laude. Kevin Stone. Paloma Christina Stripling, cum laude. Abigail Strongen. Namo Susacha. Virginia Lupton Swain. Jamila Latifa Taff. Deborah Tomarat. Albert Topier. Keen Taylor. Genevieve Tejada. Ian Lane Thompson. Ha Tio. Sun Qua Tran, magna cum laude. Hung Quoc Tran, magna cum laude. Min Lei Bo Tran, magna cum laude. Sunny Tran, cum laude. Mai An Tran. Tuong Tran. Qua Trin. Armand Tucker. Victoria Maud Tournier, cum laude. Elijah Hillenbrand Tuvison. Josh Uri. In absentia, Nick Vance. Claire Margaret Vapp, summa cum laude. Brian Andrew Vapp. Garrett Vasily. Joshua Vence. George V. Brock III. Ashley Viglione. Josh Va. Chi L. Vu, magna cum laude. In absentia, Sam Wadsworth. Emily Walker, magna cum laude. Morgan Kathleen Walters. Ki Wang, magna cum laude. August Wang. Ava Eileen Warkaba. Susanna Brackley Watson, cum laude. Olivia Millie Weibel. Rhea Catherine Weibel. Adina Haviva Weiss, cum laude. Jacob Welsh. Sullivan M. Whitehead. Emery Sato Willard. Owen Philip Wilson, cum laude. Tara Jean Witkowski. Clara Eileen Wolf, cum laude. In absentia, Zachary W. Womer. Sarah Lynn Woolner, magna cum laude. Youngchen Xu. In absentia, Zuyen Xu. Rainer Yeager. In absentia, Pengfei Yang. Eleanor Yem. In absentia, Sarah Yoon, magna cum laude. Stephen James Young, cum laude. Aiden Thomas Zalaco Smith. Vincent P. Zalisco. Juliana E. Zeller, summa cum laude. Yicheng Zheng. Dagmawi Zarahun, cum laude. Samuel Zode. Sarah Zong, cum laude. Fenghong Zhou, magna cum laude. Sophia Zhang. Charles Ziegert. Ali Ziegler Khan. Juan Pablo Zuluaga. And Tun Liu.
So can we give the great Denison class of 2024 one more round of applause? And I just want to end where I started. It has been an honor and a privilege to share this hill with you for the last 4 years. Please come back often, stay connected to the college, and thank you for being great Denisonians. Go give them one more round. So, as is our tradition, we close the commencement ceremony each year with the singing of the first verse of To Denison, our alma mater. So I think some members of the just graduated class are going to come up and they're going to sing it for us once, and then they're going to lead us in singing it a second time. So the words are in your program. You do not want to hear my voice, so I'm going to stand back from the microphone.
To Denison we raise our song, fair college on the hill, the name that sets our souls on fire and makes our senses thrill. To Denison, my Denison, in praise our voices swell, the seeds of happy college days, the home we love so well. To Denison we raise our song, fair college on the hill, the name that sets our souls on fire and makes our senses thrill. To Denison, my Denison, in praise our voices swell, the seeds of happy college days, the home we love so well.
You guys did a great job. Now I gotta grab the mic. Good job. Will everyone please be seated while the platform party and faculty recess? After the recessional, Associate Provost Kathy Dollard will dismiss the graduates for the ceremonial turning of the tassels and the tossing of the mortarboards.
To our graduated seniors, you have a couple of last tasks. Your diplomas that will go in those red covers. Pick them up on the way out on the right, and don't forget, we'll mail them to you if you don't get them, but go get them. And members of the class of 2024, please join together as a class in turning your tassels from right to left. You may now celebrate by tossing your mortarboards. Congratulations.